So first, let's talk about what electricity is. To keep it simple, electricity is the movement of charged electronic particles called electrons. In this photo, they're the blue circles. Batteries are one very common chemical device used to move electrons. Batteries have a positive end and a negative end, and when they are hooked up to a circuit, a chemical reaction occurs that is strong enough to create a force that moves electrons. But how do electrons move? Electrons move on something called a conductor. These copper wires are a very good example of this. Conductors are usually metal as electrons flow easily through them. Copper and aluminum are the two most popular materials used for wiring and electricity. Flowing electrons create what is called a current. The red arrows in this picture show the electrons moving around the circuit in a circular motion. Electrical current is measured in something called amperes. Pronounced amp plus pairs, it can kind of be a tricky word to say. So people usually just short form that and call it amps. 1 amp is equal to this absolutely massive number of electrons flowing through 1 point per second. Volts is another measurement that we're going to talk about in this video. Volts is a measurement for the force used to move electrons. AA batteries like this one are 1.5 volts, and that's a relatively low voltage, so that is why they are safe to touch. But the plugs in our home are very high voltage, and they are not safe to touch. So let's review. Amps measures the flow of electrons, and volts measures the force used to move the electrons. Alright, moving on. So, when we have an electrical current flowing on a path, this is called a circuit. Notice how the circuit comes all the way around. This is what creates the constant flow of electricity. One common misconception about electricity is that it's a linear movement, meaning that it starts at the battery, goes out to the light, and then moves back on the same line. But this is not the case at all. For example, electrons leave the battery moving along the conductor to the load, which in this case is a light bulb. They flow through the load back to the battery and the cycle continues. Another common electrical error, and a very dangerous one, is the short circuit. With high voltage power and no load, there's nothing to use up any of the electrons flowing through the circuit. This causes a large amount of heat to be created within your circuit. And I'm pretty sure you could guess what happens next. Just please, don't be this guy.